Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to our citizens and our guests this evening, as well as the council itself and staff. And City Clerk, please, with the roll.
Mayor Cernanek.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Here.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Stein.
Here.
Councilmember Valdez.
Present.
Okay, and this is our meeting of Tuesday, January 20th. John?
Thank you very much, Mayor. My name is John Ostermiller, and I'm chairman of the board for South Suburban Park and Recreation District. Tonight, we're having a joint meeting with the Littleton City Council. I'd like to introduce my fellow directors, Pam Eller, Sue Rosser, Mike Anderson, and Scott LaBreche. Also joining us tonight for support are members of the staff of South Suburban, Brett Collins, our senior director of planning, Dave Lorenz, executive director, and Deanna Hain, deputy director.
Yes, I did notice that Dave is looking very short this evening. So, Chairman Ostermiller, could you please lead us in the pledge? Everyone, please stand.
I certainly will. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the council's agenda this evening, we're going to stray a bit from protocol in that anyone that was anticipating in citizen comments, possibly commenting about the Riverside Downs master plan, to have the opportunity to come forward, since according to our agenda and in deference to making it an efficient evening for the South Suburban Board, we will have that agenda item will occur before our typical citizen comments. So is anyone present looking to comment regarding the Riverside Downs master plan? Please, Paul.
Good evening, Council and South Suburban Board. I hope you're all impressed that I've come down here to hear you folks in person as opposed to the President of the United States.
If we're quick this evening, you may have the opportunity yet.
I'm in no hurry, Paul.
Okay. Okay. My 2 cents worth is on the riverfront thing. I think it's a terrific idea. The plan that showed up on the city's website was terrific. I eat down there every once in a while, breakfast and lunch, and frequently I have sat at the outside part of the Irish place. I can't think of their name. Starts with a C.
Celtic Tavern.
Celtic Tavern. Thank you, sir. The area between there and the river desperately needs some help, and I suspect this is going to do it. So I hope this gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And then again, if anyone wants to comment on this specific project. So this is with regard to the Riverside Downs Master Plan. Pam?
Can I have the projector, please? So my name is Pam Chepper, and I live across Santa Fe from this proposed work. And just because I have the opportunity of South Suburban Parks and Rec being here, what I would prefer in this area, being a user of that path, is improvement of the entire path. This will be in striking contrast to both sides of the path around it. And especially as you go toward Walgreens, in back of Walgreens, there's always trash. What happens is when I cross Santa Fe and get to Bellevue, I can always find a bag blowing around. I pick up the bag, and then I pick up stuff, trash, and put it in the bag. And when I get home, I've always got a full bag. I've gone back with my car to collect styrofoam blocks that are down by the river. So there's a lot of trash by Walgreens, and then there's a recycling center a little further down. So, Paul, I do think hit the nail on the head. This is a public money for helping private enterprise. Arguably, there is a public benefit because of the path, but I would like the entire path to, for one, be sheltered from noise from Santa Fe. That's the overwhelming experience on the path is a howling monster right next to you. And then the second thing is replanting a large strip with native plants to restore native habitat for insects and butterflies, bees, bats. And I think that would be far better for the community and for me than this proposed development. I don't think what I'm saying is going to make any difference, but I wanted you to hear it. As a user, to me, this is not what's needed. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else commenting on the project? Seeing none, we'll turn it to the staff presentation and Deputy City Manager Mike Broughton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and South Suburban Board. Mike Broughton, Deputy City Manager. Before you this evening is the question on whether or not to approve the Riverside Downs master plan. The master plan's been developed through assistance from Arapahoe County. The city and Arapahoe County both put money into it. Work has been completed by DHM Designs, and Bill Newman, one of their reps, is here. Currently, the project is a public-private partnership, has been alluded to in the public comment. The construction cost is estimated to be about $1 million. Council budgeted $900,000 this year in their budget for completion. The shopping center owner has committed $60,000, which there's a representative here tonight to speak to that. And staff has recently submitted a joint projects application to Arapahoe County, and that was for about $500,000. So we can leverage our funding, get another $500,000 to fund it, and then move forward with the project. In doing so, part of the reason we're here tonight is for approval of the master plan along with South Suburban. We move then to the South Platte Working Group on Thursday for their consideration of it. Then it moves to the County Open Space and Trails Advisory Board, and from there the county commissioners approve it, or consider it, I should say. Hopefully they approve it. And with that, I'll let Councilmember Brinkman fill in the blanks and recognize the guests and others.
Thanks. Mike, could you advance it to the... This one? Thanks. Well, this is something that both council and the South Suburban Board are familiar with. We've been, I think, started talking about this over a year ago and actually started really working on it in the spring. And this particular project is really, it's our first foray into working with the private property, creating a synergy between what's existing as our trail system. I would not call this true open space, but it is protected area along our river with our Mary Carter Trail running through it. And when we first, the South Platte Working Group, when we did our charrette, one of the things, that was a couple of years ago, one of the things that was very clear that we understood that was a priority for us along the river throughout Arapahoe County was to integrate economic development into the aspect of the features that we put along the river. We had purchased quite a bit of land in the first phases of the working group, and then the second phase of the working group is really on what do we do with those properties, how do we enhance those properties, how do we create a place for people to go. And how do we tie that into the communities along the river who have properties and who are working on really making it that river that special place? Because as we know, we're very lucky that we have it coming right through our communities. The couple of features that I wanted to point out on this particular project that I think are fantastic, is the accessibility and the safety that we have that we will be improving along here. This is a dangerous portion of the trail because of the difficulty with accessing it from the shopping center, which, by the way, also has a bike shop. So there's quite a bit of traffic related to that bike shop. And so there is an increased amount of difficulty because it's not being balanced by the usage, by the amount of need that we're seeing on the trail. And so this plan actually puts all of that creates a much safer venue for both pedestrians and bikers. And the other thing that it does is it turns the shopping center's kind of community center point, turns it around so that it now is facing the river, and so that there is a better opportunity for people to really enjoy that element. The other thing that we're doing on this, which I think is it's our first time we've done it, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it works. It's already gathering a lot of excitement, is to have some activities on this area. So we're going to put a bocce ball court in, and there will be an area for small concerts. I mean, real small, but so there's going to be places where we'll be able to have events and activities. The phase one is what we're working on right now in terms of what we'll get started with. The phase two, that is the work in the river, we're still waiting for urban drainage flood control to get back to us on some of that in terms of what the Army Corps, because that, again, is a challenge to, once you touch the water, all the rules change. So this is a project that would not have come to fruition if we didn't have a strong partner. Steve Kurtz is here with Littleton Capital Partners. They built the shopping center, and they now manage the shopping center. And he and his partner, Jonathan, have worked with us as a partnership on this. And Steve, would you like to come down and say a few words?
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Council. Again, my name's Steve Kurtz. We were the original builders on the center, and this was back in 2006, I believe. Approached doing this type of thing along the river, and let me back up a little bit here. I wanted to talk about a little bit of history in Littleton, how this river has been part of the Littleton fabric for, since the mid-1800s. It really hasn't been utilized from a recreational perspective until just recently. Back in the 60s when the Corps came through and wanted to channelize the river, I think Littleton's council and everybody in Littleton fought that and created today what we have from a recreational amenity. So to have Debbie and council approach us for this, it was kind of nostalgic in a way that we could be part of redevelopment of the river. So jumping ahead a few years, in 2008 we started the center, and as part of just good urban planning and architecture, wanted to orient the project to the river and integrate the project with the property. And a lot of different developments around the country had found success with this from an economic standpoint, and so we were real interested in doing this for a number of reasons that never really happened at that time. So it's interesting that we've come full circle now, and we're back talking with you guys about doing this, and it's in a great format where it can be a public-private venture. I think as private property owners, we believe strongly that this type of development adds continuing value to our property. It provides public outdoor amenity within the property, and I think the entertainment venue that will come on with this will be well received from the community. I think there are several people that I know around town I've talked about this to already, and they say, "You're going to have a band down there?" And I said, "Well, not just a little band, not a big band." And I think just to open up our shopping center to the river and that amenity is going to be neat from that perspective. We'll have electricity in the open space where a guy can come in and plug in an amplifier if he wants and bring his guitar and start playing. It'd be nice. It increases leasing interest in the project. I think a lot of tenants these days, as a credo in their leasing, in their corporate philosophy, they believe in being associated with open space and recreational amenities. So I think from an office perspective and a retail perspective, it will aid in our leasing efforts in the center. It will also promote, I think, increased visitor traffic to the center. when you start to see this kind of public-private interaction, people appreciate that, I think, and especially when you get farmers markets and things like that programmed into a shopping center's activities. This would be really neat if you can imagine a whole army of bikes driving up to a farmer's market that would be in this plaza between the two buildings. It could be really a nice thing. It increases sales, I think, because the tenant viability is stronger, tenants stay longer, their employees are happier. So just from a tenant perspective, it reduces turnover it reduces turnover in employees, but it reduces tenant turnover from our perspective. It's real expensive to keep re-tenanting space. And it also provides, I think, a retail amenity, more importantly, to the trail users, how they can then use our project for coffee or the bike shop or coming in for, to get a breakfast or something right in on their bike diagonal, and it's really convenient. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank Council and South Suburban Parks and Rec for giving us the opportunity to participate in this. It's a great amenity, I think, that very few cities around the metro area have a river like this, and to be able to incorporate this into commercial development, I think, is a really forward-thinking perspective on your part. So, and I think this project speaks volumes towards the city of Littleton's commitment to this open space and to the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
And Bill, this is Bill Newman. He's with DHM Design, and he is the DHM and Bill have been doing the complete design on this, and we'll work through the completion on it. So, Bill, you want to go through the details?
That would be great. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here tonight to share this final master plan with all of you. We've worked closely with the City of Littleton and South Suburban and Littleton Capital Partners over the last 9 months to develop this plan. These are just some of the images of kind of the existing condition between the two buildings, the existing shade shelter and fire pit and seating, and you can see it actually faces the parking lot. And the whole goal of this project is to flip that around and embrace the river and face the river. This is the final proposed master plan. And part of the goal is to create better connectivity. So these red lines indicate an extension of the upper trail that connects to Bellevue at this point, and then this little spur connects up to the crosswalk that actually leads up to Starbucks. And then we're trying to create an improved access point from the Mary Carter Greenway from this location up to the shopping center, which leads back into where the bike shop is. One of the other aspects of the project is to, create a safe environment, but it's also an accessible environment. We want to provide a ramp that leads from the upper trail up through the plaza into the parking lot and the shopping center. So this would be a ramp fully accessible. The other component we want to talk about here is the river access. So this red line represents an access trail down to the river with a little overlook here. So you can look down through the cattails. It's a beautiful area looking down on the river. That's currently being reviewed by the Army Corps of Engineers. And then if we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see this is the improved plaza. We keep the existing fire pit and water feature here. We create a new shelter that faces the river. So we flip the seating and we look down towards the river. Instead of the wall here, we have steps that kind of cascade down for access directly to the river. People can sit on those. This is the ramp that comes down next to the river. We have some stone seating and some turf areas. So it's more of a manicured landscape up towards the shopping center. We would provide more of a xeric, drought-tolerant landscape for any improvements. And then this is the bocce ball court with a shade shelter and a couple picnic tables that we had mentioned. This is kind of a bird's eye perspective looking back at what this plaza would look like. These are the steps that come down, and this is the ramp that comes up the side, and then the new shelter with seating that focuses in on the plaza but also looks out towards the river. This is kind of an existing condition we have now looking to the west of the shopping center. And this would be kind of an after shot. So you can see the access trail coming down to the river with a little overlook here. And then this is a view towards Bellevue to the north. And this is kind of the proposed after. We do have some full cutoff lighting along that upper path just in front of the shopping center. Right through here. Here's the ramp coming down and the seating. And then the access to the trail, the river is down on the side. So I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Could you go back to that one? And will you point out the area how you've handled the stage for any music?
So right at this location, we've placed some large stepping stone pavers, large pieces of stone in the lawn area. So if there were to be small concerts or somebody performing, that could occur right at this location. People can sit either on the stone walls here or even on the steps here.
Board or council, any questions? Pam?
Has there been any thought given or talked to the store owners in the mall about parking? Because I can imagine that a lot of people will see the parking lot at the shopping center as a trailhead and want to park there and take off one way or the other.
Yeah, I think we see that as a...
Steve, you'll need to come up to the microphone.
There's a portable mic over there.
There we go.
Sorry, I didn't realize. So my question had to do with parking and the fact that there would probably be users for the trail who would want to park in the shopping center lot and use that as a trailhead. And is that going to be amenable, or do you foresee a problem?
Steve, you can come on down. You can come down.
You got to come on.
I think that a lot of tenants, I'm speaking for all of them, and I may be wrong here, but most that I know would welcome additional parking and traffic through the center. It just brings more business their way, and the center has a great parking ratio, so there's plenty of spaces to park in the center. And I think that relatively speaking, who knows, we could have an army of people here to see somebody playing guitar, but for the most part, I think the center has the depth of parking where they can handle additional parking for the trail. We get a fair amount of that right now. Probably 15 or 20 cars a day will park there and then unload their bikes and ride into town. So it's kind of a trailhead in itself at this point.
Councilmember Stallman, Bruce?
I was just going to ask if you could talk a little bit about the timing of activities. When do you guys expect to start?
So we are currently just wrapping up construction drawings, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I believe we would start the project kind of late spring and complete sometime this summer.
Nice. Okay. No, thank you.
Board, council, any additional?
So I'm curious how many people you might envision watching a concert of sorts there.
You know, I can't say you know, it would be very, very small. It might be a couple dozen people.
Whoa.
Don't anticipate hundreds of people.
Well, I'm not meaning to be flip. There's a difference between a couple dozen and hundreds. I'm thinking this is going to be really attractive to people, and that quite a few people will be biking from places to come there. So that was my next question. Number one, are we really accommodating enough people with this, just sitting? And are we going to have enough places for their bicycles?
Yes, we've placed bicycle racks on the lower level here, as well as there are 3 locations on the upper level.
So how many are you thinking?
We've got probably a dozen bike racks.
With, I mean, a rack has more than one bike connection, right?
We could accommodate at that exact location about a dozen bikes.
I'm thinking you're way under planning.
And then to the left here, towards the parking lot at the other entry, there's another set of bike racks.
I'm I'm just trying to figure how many the whole combination you're talking about accommodates.
Yeah, it would really depend on the type of program that's developed, the type of concert or activity that's programmed from the shopping center. So there may be events where, you know, you wouldn't accommodate all of the bicycles at one time. But there would be space along that upper trail to pull bikes off of. But they wouldn't have necessarily a place to lock.
Council, additional questions? Board, questions?
Bill, can I just quickly address on Peggy's? We did consider quite a bit on the bike parking because we realize it's a situation where we're trying to create that problem. Exactly. And we feel at this point, based on where we can locate them, that we've got one in every location that we can appropriately put one. Because a bike rack takes up a lot more space once all the bikes are on it, so you can only put it in certain places. One of the things that can happen if there's going to be a larger event there is that you can create a bike parking lot and rope off part of the parking lot and have the bike safely secured in there.
Okay, like they do sometimes in Denver. They've done that.
Yeah, and we did that with the Criterium, where we had a bike parking lot that we had someone kind of valet it. So there are ways to handle that if that should become, you know, an issue. And I think that the intention when we talk to the partners is the intention with the amphitheater is really just to have, you know, a couple of guys with a guitar out there and just kind of entertaining folks as they're meandering around or visiting the 2 outdoor patios that are there. Just kind of an opportunity. We created a place where we can have an opportunity that we didn't have before. And, you know, see what happens.
And I mean, I think it sounds wonderful. And I think it's going to be a big hit, which is the nice intimate thing, I think, will be intimate big in a good way. So I'm just wanting us to be able to grow with it. So thank you.
Council, if no further questions, I'm entertaining a motion, please.
I move that we approve. I don't have a motion. Move that we approve the master plan for Riverside Downs.
Second.
Okay, so Council, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion or comments?
I was just going to observe, I mean, I think this is a terrific application of public funding to a public-private partnership arrangement. And, you know, that's how things get done nowadays. People have to work together, and this is a great example.
In addition to Councilmember Stallman's comments on this, one of the things is not entirely along here, but actually on the other side of the river is the trailhead there at the Ackerman property and such. And so it's a combination of both sides of the river. And at least with most of this property, Santa Fe is a distance away. So I think even with my kazoo group, we could probably be pretty well heard at this location. So with that, Council, any additional comments? Ready to vote? And a yes vote is in favor of the master plan for Riverside Downs at the South Platte River.
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, I did forget to mention that this is meeting number 832 for the South Suburban Board. And so any further questions from the board on this project? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the Riverside Downs at South Platte Park River Master Plan.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Master plan is approved.
Okay. Thank you, speakers. And thank you, board. Do you want
to
adjourn?
Thank you.
Appreciate the joint meetings together. They always go fairly quickly.
Thank you, board. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Mayor, you want to take a minute to...
Thank you guys for coming, too. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's take a 2-minute break, so a brief one to allow the
I move to approve, based on the clerk's certification, the January 6th video as the minutes for the January 6th, 2015 regular meeting of the City Council.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second. Looking for approval of the minutes. Ready to vote?
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. It is now time for our regular unscheduled citizen comments. Unscheduled appearances are an opportunity for any citizen to express opinions or ask questions regarding city services, council policies, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. Generally, an immediate response should not be expected. Typically, issues are referred to city staff for follow-up information or research and reported back to the council and the individual that initiated the comment or inquiry. If any citizen would like to speak during unscheduled public appearances, please complete a green citizen card. Those are located at the table at the entrance to the council chambers. Please provide the green card to the city clerk or leave it at the podium. Would anyone like to come forward? Doug?
Good evening, Council. Doug Clark. Last December, when a majority of the Council was getting ready to approve the Littleton Boulevard Urban Renewal Plan, Councilman Beckman asked where the requirement was specified that the blight rise to the level of being a menace to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. Councilman Beckman said that was an extremely high standard and different than the 11 or 12 conditions of blight that the Council had been using. Since the Lift attorney never answered that question, I came before you 2 weeks ago and showed where that requirement exists. It exists 5 different places in the urban renewal law. It is listed 3 different places in each of the 4 urban renewal plans you have approved and each of the resolutions you have passed declaring the properties to be blighted reference the definition which spells out this extremely high requirement. That is, that the blight rise to the level of being a menace to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. I went on 2 weeks ago to state that blighting the King Soopers as slum and blight, which the Council did last month, is an obvious abuse of their discretion since the King Soopers is brand new construction. It is being built to current city code. It is being inspected by the city. Pardon me. How can a brand new building inspected by the city possibly be a slum and blight so as to be a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare? As I was sitting down, Mayor Sinanik said, Doug, you might recall that the condition survey applies to the urban renewal area, not to the specific properties in that area. The problem is that statement isn't true.
Doug, can we get the overhead?
The condition survey lists every single property in the urban renewal area along with the blight conditions found for each of those properties. You can see the highlighted line, 80 West Littleton Boulevard, is the King Soopers property. The urban renewal law does allow for a property that is not blighted to be included in the urban renewal area, but that's not the case with the King Soopers, as you can see by this page. In fact, as you can see on the page, Lift's consultant found 7 conditions of blight for the King Soopers. For example, she determined that the brand new building was going to be a fire hazard after it was built, as you can see from the list. And she determined this even though the new building is having a sprinkler system installed as required by code. Sadly, the King Soopers isn't the only brand new construction that has been blighted by the City Council as a menace to the public. The Council has also blighted the brand new Breckenridge Brewery, the brand new 7-Eleven down by Aspen Grove, the almost new shopping center where Prince crosses Santa Fe that has Lamar's Donuts and El Vincino Pizza, and the almost new Chipotle that's on the north side of Littleton Boulevard right across from the brand new King Soopers that's being constructed. And each and every one of these properties has been individually blighted by Lift and the City Council. Now, I would say that clearly this is abuse of urban renewal, or perhaps It's clear to everyone except the majority on the council because there's 5 of you that voted to blight brand new construction in addition to ACC property and open space and a church. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else? Betty?
Evening, Council, Mayor. I like the beard. Nice touch. At their December meeting, the lift...
Betty, just quick, could you identify yourself?
Oh, sorry. I thought everybody in the world knew me. Betty Harris. I live in District 1. At their December meeting, LIFT voted to include Breckenridge Brewery in the TIF area. At the December 2nd meeting, this council voted to include King Soopers in the TIF area. Bruce Stallman and the majority on the council who have voted for urban renewal have repeatedly said that urban renewal does not take away tax dollars. It only takes away new tax dollars which would not exist without the urban renewal project. The problem with this statement is that it's not true, as shown by the new King Soopers at Littleton and Broadway and the new Breckenridge Brewery north of Aspen Grove. Neither the King Soopers renovation nor the Breckenridge Brewery are urban renewal projects. Construction started on both long before any urban renewal plans were ever approved. Neither project will receive a single dime from the lift or from the urban renewal. Yet lift and urban renewal will suck up all the new tax revenue generated by both properties. This revenue that would otherwise be going to South Suburban Parks, Recreation District, Littleton Public Schools, and Arapahoe County. The reason this is happening is because the council and LIFT decided to blight both properties and include both properties in the urban renewal areas. They did this even though both projects are brand new construction and neither project has received any help from urban renewal. This means, by the city's own calculation, that the city of Littleton would lose more than $3 million in sales tax revenue from just the Breckenridge Brewery. Sales tax revenue that it would be getting if the brewery were not included in the urban renewal area. The city will also lose more than $2 million in sales tax from the new King Soopers because the King Soopers was also included in that urban renewal area. Not only will the city lose $5 million in future sales tax revenue, but the city will have to pay $500,000 to both projects to refund them for the sales taxes they're generated, sales taxes that are going to lift instead of the city. This means that the city by itself is losing more than $5.5 million just in sales taxes on just those 2 non-urban renewal projects. The other taxing entities are also losing money that they would otherwise be getting except for urban renewal disaster. Maybe it's time to do some recalculation or some rethinking.
Thank you.
Betty, did you move? Betty, did you move? You said District 1. You're in District 2, right? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the evening? Okay, seeing no one.
There's one more.
Oh, Jeannie?
Jeannie Erickson, District 1. I haven't moved. I have a new topic this evening, a very sad one, as a matter of fact. Here's a couple pictures of my friend Colleen. On September 2nd, 2014, 4 months ago, Colleen was walking across the street directly outside of her condo, crossing at Federal Boulevard and Prentice in the city of Littleton. She was hit by a car and killed. There was nothing in the paper about this tragic accident, which I found strange. A resident in Littleton is killed in an auto pedestrian accident, and nothing appeared in the paper. Her life did matter. It made me wonder how many other accidents happen in Littleton where people are killed, and because it is not printed in the paper or on the TV news, we never hear anything about them. This concerns me. I'm sorry, I thought I was ready to do this. I am also concerned that something as tragic as my friend's death is what brought to my attention the fact that there is not one single crosswalk on Federal Boulevard between Bellevue and Bowles. This is a very high-density area with many condos and apartments on both sides of Federal. There are also 2 parks, an elementary school, and a middle school within blocks of these condos and apartments, and many residents, including children, are crossing Federal in this area. Without a crosswalk, residents are taking their lives into their own hands, crossing 4 lanes of traffic with a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. It is the responsibility of the city to keep our pedestrians and drivers safe on the roads in Littleton. You are in the process of possibly approving a $1 million roundabout at Prince and Prentice. I believe you also need to look at a crosswalk, specifically in the South Federal Circle, Federal Boulevard area. Colleen loved Littleton. She loved her condo at Steeplechase, where the racetrack used to be located. She spent the last 20 years of her life as a travel agent, making other people's dreams come true. She loved to travel. She had been to 60 countries. She was a breast cancer survivor, the eldest of 10 children. She has a huge family and many, many friends that miss her dearly. May you rest in peace, Colleen. I am requesting that this study be done on creating a crosswalk in this densely populated intersection so that another tragedy can possibly be prevented. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Anyone else? Excuse me, Pam?
I have the same topic. I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live in District 1. Provide protection for pedestrians and drivers in Littleton. And the problem is that Colleen was hit by a car on Federal Boulevard and died. Also, a driver struck and killed a pedestrian, and the officer wrote down, I spoke with her. She was incredibly shaken. You can imagine if you're driving at 9 o'clock at night and you come around the curve on Federal Boulevard and you hit someone, what that would do to you for the rest of your life. And the circumstances are, and you can't see this very well, this is too bad, but I believe that all of you should be familiar with this. From Bellevue, Federal comes south and takes a curve, and from that curve, you cannot see south on Federal Boulevard until you're at the second part of the curve. You cannot see. So you have very limited distance, a few hundred feet, less than 1,000, to see where this accident occurred. And as Jeannie pointed out, there's the Centennial Academy of Fine Arts, there's Goddard Middle School, there are parks. South Platte Trail, which you folks are commending, is across right down there. And in that whole stretch from Bellevue to Bowles, there are no crosswalks. This comes from Federal. Federal goes all the way north to Wyoming, I think, Highway 88, 87. And people come down here fast. And you know, I'm not sure whether it's a state highway in Littleton, so this is our responsibility, but I'm pointing because I have no power. You do. And where the accident took place is about in the middle of almost a mile with no crosswalks at 40 miles an hour and with no visibility coming from the north. So what's Littleton doing just today? A street condition survey is in progress, appeared on the website, but it does not include safety. It includes conditions of the roads. A traffic signal and crosswalk are planned for Federal and Berry under the Safe Routes to School grant. But where Colleen was hit is 400 feet and 1,000 feet from this signal. And where most people live is the same place. Berry is at the end of the residences across from the school. It's not where this accident happened. And as Jeannie mentioned, the city has approved this roundabout. It's very low. I drive there all the time. It's a low-speed intersection controlled by stop signs. I'm not sure many accidents have happened there, and if they have, they're low speed. So I want to say the city is at risk of liability, and I believe it's your fiscal responsibility to prevent us from being sued. After a fatal accident, the danger to both pedestrians and drivers is more certain. The speed limit on Federal is 40 miles an hour. It kills people. The driving hazard comes from no visibility coming southbound from Federal past Progress Avenue. And a crosswalk at Berry, which is further south, does nothing to mitigate that hazard. What did Littleton do to prevent this? Well, there are no crosswalks in this whole mile. And where is the city's street infrastructure plan? I've actually pointed this out before. My request is to produce a city infrastructure improvement plan and start by enhancing the street study plan to include street improvements. This is my picture of Colleen. In that box, this is after the services. And a few people are taking a moment to sit and be together. And that's Colleen, ashes. So thank you for consideration. I would like you to get city management to work on getting pedestrian and driver protection on Federal Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Carol?
I'm Carol Breezak. I live in the 4th District. I thought it was rather strange shortly after your January 6th meeting when you passed your resolution for where you post for your open meetings requirements that you immediately broke the law. Prior to the meeting that you had last Thursday, the law states that before you meet, that an agenda with the specific agenda information be posted at least 24 hours in advance. This council met last Thursday morning, knowing that you would be discussing council goals and objectives, but you failed to provide proper notice to the public. The proper course of action would have been to recognize the failure to comply with the open meetings law and reschedule for another time. As mayor, you have responsibility to hold up the law, but with the full knowledge that council had not met the requirements of the law, you decided to proceed with the meeting anyway. On a different topic, as you know, I've been more than a little concerned about the upcoming March 3rd election. First, there was an intergovernmental agreement with the county to perform certain duties of the election with our city clerk remaining the designated election official. The IGA was illegal as it included Section 13.5 of the Uniform Election Code that could not be used for municipal elections, something that was pointed out by a citizen. The IGA was rewritten and scheduled for the county commissioner's approval on January 6th. However, it was pulled from their agenda by their attorney. When I inquired, I was told that the city had hired their own attorney to negotiate with the county, and her advice was that the city run their own election, as the county and the city could not come to an agreement on the use of signature verification. The county would not participate in an election that did not use signature verification, and the city's attorney advised them not to use signature verification. Baffling to me why the added certainty of signature verification on a mail-in ballot election would not be desired. The attorney that advised against the use of signature verification was none other than an attorney from the very firm that is providing both the city and the Urban Renewal Authority legal advice on all urban renewal matters. A firm that benefits directly from the outcome of the election, an attorney whose firm clearly has a direct interest in the election, an attorney that just as clearly has a conflict of interest and should have not been engaged to provide legal advice on the very election that would benefit her firm. I guess appearances don't matter. We have another situation that seems a little too cozy for comfort. Jim Collins, an attorney with his own firm, sits on the Urban Renewal Authority. The authority negotiated with South Suburban to determine how much tax increment the authority would take from them. Jim Collins not only sits on the Urban Renewal Authority, but he's also the attorney for South Suburban. So he sits on the authority that will take tax dollars from South Suburban, and he's the legal counsel for South Suburban. How nice. When asked, Mr. Collins said he did not see a conflict of interest since another member of his firm would be negotiating on behalf of South Suburban. Perhaps not, but it doesn't look good. But then appearances don't matter. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move to comments and reports. City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I get into the manager's minute, let me hit two items that came up this evening. One is, just want to clarify and apologize, Councilman Stallman, if I take this away from you, but I would just remind the council and anybody watching that there are no urban renewal projects, and as Councilman Stallman has pointed out in the past, there is no increment being taken from anything at this point. And so until such time that we have a project to negotiate a actual financing plan, nothing has changed with the approval of an urban renewal area plan. So just a reminder on that front. And regarding federal and the safety of crossing federal, I think council is cognizant, but our Safe Routes to School grant is putting in a crossing at Berry there. That has been engineered, so it's in process, and it'll be put into place as soon as we can get through the engineering and, easements, acquisition, and that type of stuff. So that is in process.
Michael, would you comment on the roundabout?
There's nothing happening on the roundabout. I believe that council did not. They left the money in there, but you guys were not interested in moving forward with that at this time. So
it has not been approved.
It has not been approved. Correct.
Thank you.
All right. On to manager's minute items. Unfortunately, not starting with great news, but it is good news ultimately. And a reminder, you all remember that our police officer, Kevin Denner, was killed, and the justice has been served, at least in our view, that the man responsible for the accident that took his life May of 2013 was found guilty on this last Friday on all accounts. So we can take some rest in that. Let's see, number two, the economic development staff. Now we're going to start picking up some positive here. The economic development staff completed 887 projects for 219 different companies in 2014. Councilman Stallman, I think, had asked about this. Stu Fond is retiring from the treatment plant, and Dennis Stowe will be taking his position. We are not filling one of those positions, so we're going to save money by the savings of one FTE. So I think we can run the plant without both those positions. So I'll keep you updated as we move forward on that. Let's see, CDOT has notified us that we should receive $88,000 in federal grant to purchase replacement buses for the shopping cart and omnibus. The grant's expected to be finalized by the State Transportation Commission in March. I'm not sure if we're on number 5 or not, but number 5, on February 23rd, the communications staff will kick off a 6-month project to upgrade our website, littletongov.org. We're staying with Vision Internet, and when we're finished, visitors should notice a much more responsive website. Not a lot of visual changes, but the mechanics behind it, the foundation, will be upgraded to current technology standards. And there were more than 500,000 visits to the website last year. On a more personal note, I received a very nice letter from Leanne Barnes. She's the general manager, which is like the town or city manager of our sister city at the Bega Valley Shire. And I had sent a letter to her last December along with a bunch of copies of the Littleton calendar, and her response back was, it sounds like there's a lot going on there now. She said for herself, there are a number of significant projects underway, including construction of a major civic center project in Bega, port developments in Eden, and airport developments in Marabula, as well as civic center redevelopments in 4 different towns. We will have much to share with your delegation when they visit. Plan ahead.
Thank you, mate. That was my attempt at Australian.
All right. Sorry, I'm focused here. And it says the next word is thank you for your extended hand of sister cityhood. So we'll plan a trip here in 2016. In another note about the calendar, we received a card from Meal on Wheels that says thank you for your generous donation of Littleton calendars. It made our 12 days of Christmas so special for our clients. Number 8, some astonishing figures on permit valuations in 2014 that we thought you'd find interesting. New residential, including commercial, $52 million in valuation. Residential remodel or addition, $5.5 million. New commercial at $30.5 million. Commercial remodel or addition, $25.5 million. And Councilman Cole would like photovoltaic/solar at $1 million. This does not include the roof repairs or replacement due to the hailstorm. Sorry, Councilman Stein, I know you were one of the victims of that. Number 9, you can now purchase tickets online for the 125th birthday celebration at the museum on Saturday, March 7th. That will include fireworks in Kettering Park. The Littleton Community Trail is now completed and will be dedicated on Sunday, March 8th, so plan for that. And there will be a free community pancake breakfast and kids' activities at the Buck Center. Visit littletonrocks.com for more information. More on benchmarking. The Littleton Museum and Bemis Library had combined attendance of more than 455,000 in 14, a 2% increase over 2013. And last but not least, because we're enjoying videos, we're going to show you one enjoyable video. We have our new mediation program that kicked off a few weeks ago, and our staff created a video to promote the program, and you will, I'm sure, recognize the actors. So, Doug?
Why don't you ever trim your trees?
I would trim my trees if I wasn't up all night listening to your dogs bark.
Can you even hear my dogs over your obnoxious motorcycle?
Whatever, man. You need to paint that house. Look at it, it's all peeling off the sides there.
Yeah, well, why don't I'm going to call the fire department, because every time you light your grill, smoke comes pouring into my house.
Hey, maybe we get the Christmas lights down before June this year, huh?
Does this sound familiar? Hi, I'm Ryan Thompson. I'm the Mediation Program Coordinator for the City of Littleton and the Conflict Resolution Center. We're here to help out in situations like this. When you contact the Conflict Resolution Center, a trained mediator will work with you to resolve many different types of conflict at no cost to you. Mediation provides an opportunity for persons involved in a dispute to work towards an acceptable resolution in a safe, confidential, and constructive environment. Mediation allows participants to discuss issues from their own perspective. We will contact and communicate with all parties involved to schedule a time that works for everyone to meet. We will also assist the parties in drafting an agreement that is acceptable and attainable. Just go to the littletonGov.org/mediation website or give us a call at 303-795-3876. A trained mediator will be ready to assist you. Community resolutions for community disputes. Give us a call.
Who says municipal employees can't have a sense of humor? And as a final thought on that, Ryan will be in front of you next week for your study session. So thank you, Mayor.
Who?
Ryan Thompson.
Ryan Thompson, your
okay,
mediator.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
Oops, nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Stallman?
A couple items. The Fire Partner Review Committee meeting was held on the 13th of January. I actually had a work conflict and couldn't attend, but got notes from Chief Armstrong, and just very quickly, the topics of interest to the partners included the following. There's been some issues with response time as far as the ranch, Highlands Ranch's Metro District is concerned. It's a combination of turnout and dispatch times. He said the dispatch timing is primarily due to the new JACC, which I think is the communication system, right? Yeah. And they're actually have had improvements in that of late, and they're working to address some of the turnout time issues. There was some budget discussion. There was an update on the quick cars and the care cars, or the quick car program and the care car programs. City Manager Penny, I don't know if you've got any new information on that. It's still sort of evolving at this juncture, but feel free. No. Okay.
I think it's very, the one piece I would jump in on is it's very successful, and they're actually looking at, we've got some great staff in there, and they're really trying to see how they can expand the program, start the billing process. So, but the service, the customers that we've had, I'm very pleased with the service. So you'll see it expand.
Thank you. The another topic of discussion had sort of, there's been an ongoing, and it runs hot and cold, an ongoing conversation about various merger activities. We looked at, we had conversations, council recall, with Englewood a couple years ago. Given the economies of scale associated with larger districts, it's not, these things pop up periodically. But the partners wanted to communicate as well that everybody agrees the partnership is working very well, and there's high degree of satisfaction with it at this point in time. Update on the ESCI study. ESCI on the standard of cover expects a draft to be completed by the end of January. You think we're still on track with that?
Yes.
Perfect. And I think that's good for the moment on that. I did have a meeting yesterday with a lady named Linda Haley, who's the county's director of the Community Services Block Grant Advisory Council. And this is Assistant City Manager Bratton and City Manager Penny asked if I'd sit in on that, and more than happy to do it. A lot of it has to do with federal funding that comes through the county but is distributed throughout the county, and actually to underprivileged seniors who, Meals on Wheels came up just a minute ago, but as it so happens, there are a disproportionate number of citizens that are served in these manners that actually end up living in Littleton, Englewood, and Sheridan relative to places like Centennial, for example, or Aurora. So it's good that we've got some representation on, and I'm in the first meeting of that particular board is on the 28th, which I'm looking forward to going to. Lastly, quick clarification, if I can ask the city manager. The citizen who came down in public comments with respect to and made comments about the sales tax revenue associated with Breckenridge Brewery and King's Supers, those are pretty big numbers that were being tossed about. It struck me that those were, is there any sense from your perspective, city manager, that those are valid numbers or order of magnitude?
I don't know duration and how those were calculated. Breckenridge Brewery, their only sales tax that they're going to be generated is from the restaurant.
Right.
We don't have updated revenue numbers. Originally, when they were coming through as a smaller restaurant, they have expanded it. Who knows what they're going to make on a 300-seat restaurant over X period of time in there. I think the numbers sounded large. Originally, when we did the sales tax shareback, we weren't even sure they were going to meet that number over that 5-year period of the 300,000. So until we get some updated numbers, I can't speak for that. And on the King Supers, remember, we don't tax groceries, so we're only talking about the taxable items, non-grocery items, which is about 20% of their sales. And I can't recall exactly what their annual, nor can I speak specifically in public to what their annual sales tax numbers are. But as I recall, on a distant memory, it's a relatively low number, and it's nowhere near, even over a 25-year period, near those types of numbers. So no, I would say both were highly exaggerated, and part of my comment on my manager's update was, until we have a project, we don't know whether we would take any of the increment. It all depends upon what the project is and what's negotiated with the developer around the need for the stopgap financing.
Well, and to close the loop on that, and that's where I was going to go as well, I obviously agree with that, but my understanding would be that at the point in time a project occurs, the base is the base. So if those were hypothetically real numbers, they'd essentially be the base at the point in time that negotiations commence.
Yeah, I believe you go back 3 or 5 years to get your standard base for it, so you'd go back over the average.
On sales as well as property?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd be looking at what those numbers were during that period of time, and again, so that's how you're determining your base. And as I've said many times, looking at what increment would be necessary for funding the project.
Right. And again, it would be a gap funding.
Correct.
You're just funding the gap. You're not giving money. Nobody's giving money to corporations or developers. It's basically public infrastructure dollars, and it's basically where the economics don't work without a public-private investment, like we talked about with South Suburban.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess and I'll stop very quickly, but I did want to say I'm somewhat apologetic to folks that watch this from the standpoint of having to reiterate these granular details consistently. It just strikes me that we hear so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt coming through some of these comments that it's not acceptable to just let them go by and get it out there in the public domain without making some sort of clarification. Yet at the same point in time, I freely acknowledge that having to clarify this stuff is arduous, and it's a shame people have to go through this process week after week. So, my apologies, but I think it's important. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Valdez.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Brinkman.
I just have a real quick mention that for those who use the trail on the east side of the river, on the south side of Mineral, the river restoration project is moving down there next month, and the trail will be pretty much detoured around and stuff like that. So it would be probably recommended that people stay on the west side of that while that work is being done. It should only take about 5 weeks for that to be completed, weather allowing, which means they've about completed the work up on the northern side, and it looks very, very different. So if you get a chance to go take a look at that, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Well, just to sort of second what Councilmember Stallman said, it seems like week after week we have folks come down and they sort of lob virtual grenades at our airways about numbers and facts and figures and purported to be true. Fact is that there is no urban renewal project at all, and so there is no tax increment financing or anything else that's being diverted, given to, taken away from, nothing. This council, prior to my being on council, negotiated with both King Supers and with Breckenridge Brewery some sales tax sharebacks, which had nothing to do with urban renewal, which will not have anything to do with urban renewal. And I think it's a real disservice to our folks watching to try to melange those together, because they're not at all connected. So thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Beckman.
Just a comment. Our condolences go to the loss of the citizen back in the fall last year on Federal. When Federal was built in the 1980s, it was a different world down here in this part of Littleton, and the idea was that would be a parkway. That's one of the reasons why it curves and has a sense of of not going straight. It's one of the reasons why there's an island in the middle in the way it was designed. And the folks that really remember back, that was not there when Centennial Racetrack was there. It was built as part of the project of redoing the land where Centennial Racetrack was. But I remember also then the amount of traffic was nothing like it is today. And the competition to get from one end to the other was nothing like it is today. So I would ask that we take another look at Federal. You know, we've got a lot of people, a lot of citizens on either side of that road. And, you know, for the reasons that were mentioned, getting across the road to go to the school or to go to the businesses, there is a definite, when we encourage pedestrians to move, they've got to go across a road that was never designed to be crossed by pedestrians in the fashion that it exists today. So I've got some real sympathy for that issue.
Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
And I echo and support Mayor Pro Tem's comments. Certainly my condolences to Pam and Jeannie on the death of their friends, especially. Just to give you a quick update to some of the council, some of the activities that are occurring with the Denver Regional Council of Government. As I've stated earlier, there's development of a 2040 plan that's been going on, which is 25 years out into the future. It was interesting today because we had an economic vitality subcommittee meeting with that group and had Tom Clark, as we know, of the Metro Denver Economic Development Group. We had Mike Fitzgerald from the South Denver Economic Development Group, as well as Paul Washington, who is the Director of Economic Development for the City of Denver, and he's been in front of us, along with Doug Tisdale, who is now the Executive Vice President of Economic Development at the South Metro Denver Chamber. And to a person, they all lauded the past history of the DRCOG staff. I'll use that. That's Denver Regional Council of Government. The DRCOG staff, particularly in getting a lot of the demographics correct in projecting that for what would happen with Denver. It's interesting to go back to the 25-year plan that was written that ended in 2015 and see that their population projection for Denver was only off by a couple 100,000. So it's kind of amazing in catching some of that magnitude correctly. But there are two new chapters being written into this year's plan for 2040. One is on economic vitality and trying to take a look at what is done by the various economic development groups, statistics that are available so that the metro region can actually track and do better, both with regard modeling and sub-modeling, as well as the metrics and what the objectives are. So it was a very interesting discussion. Also on the housing front, trying to take an even closer look at the interface of housing and economic development and the mobility of folks, not just to and from jobs and positions, but also across the amenities and dealing with some of the tourism piece. And then that's going to be before the board sometime in March, taking a look at that plan. And then tomorrow evening, we're looking at the Phase 2 TIP plan, which is dealing with an allocation of about $100 million to be spent over the next 4 years. Some of this becomes material because if we start looking at where we get financing for some of our intersection or congestion relief, it would ultimately go before the DRCOG board. So that's part of why I'm mentioning that. But it's very interesting, particularly when it gets to the Phase 2. It seems that some of the premises or guidelines that are put out by the group all end up being rediscussed at the board level. So you can think about me tomorrow evening when I'm spending a lot of time at that, but you'll hear some of that as we go along. So appreciate that, and thank Council for your comments. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items can be adopted by one simple motion. All ordinances must be read by title prior to a vote on the motion, and any consent agenda item may be removed at the request of a council member. First up is agenda item 8A. It's ordinance 07-2015. This is an ordinance on first reading providing that the annual sanitary sewer service charges be set annually by council resolution, and sets February 3rd for the second reading and public comment on that. Agenda item 8B is ordinance 08-2015. This is ordinance on first reading providing that the annual stormwater and flood management utility fees be set annually by council resolution. Also sets second reading for February 3rd, as well as allowing for public comment at that point in time. Next is item 8C, ordinance 01-2015. This is ordinance on first reading adopting the 2014 edition of the National Electric Code, the 2013 edition of the Safety Code for elevators and escalators, and the 2011 edition of the Safety Standard for platform lifts and stairway chairlifts, and sets the second reading for February 3rd, along with allowing for public comment. Item 8D is ID number 15-018. This is a motion appointing Doug Terry and Chris Armstrong, our fire chief, to the Consolidated Regional CAD System Operations Committee. And then agenda item 8E is consent agenda item 8E is ordinance 06-2015. It's an ordinance on first reading approving the rezoning of property known as 2135 West Chenango Avenue from I-1 to PD1 and the PDI and the Arapahoe County Residential Center General Planned Development Plan. Sets second reading for February 3rd and opportunity for public hearing at that point in time.
Just to clarify, Mayor, that public hearing is actually February 17th on that item.
Oh, thank you. So, thank you. So that last one, so for ordinance 06-2015, the public hearing will be on February 17th. Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Council, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. A yes vote is approval of the consent agenda items 8A through 8E.
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Okay. Next up, we have ordinances for second reading and public hearing. We have ordinance 05-2015. This is ordinance on second reading regarding requirements for a qualified municipal court of record. And do we have any staff presentation on this, Kristen?
I'm here for any questions. Basically, state statute requires that certain requirements for court proceedings be set by ordinance. We are currently doing all of this in practice. It just isn't codified. So we're checking that box to comply with the statute.
Okay. Council, any questions? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing at 7:49 p.m. There is no one on the roster. Is anyone looking to comment? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:49 and 30 seconds. Council, any any conversation or discussion? Seeing none, looking for a motion?
Move to approve on second reading the ordinance regarding requirements for a qualified municipal court of record.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? Seeing none. Council, ready to vote?
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.